this effort has been quite progressive in terms of we've been on the forefront of doing something that no one else is doing, and partnering as an athletic conference. We like to think of ourselves as the best, and we know that other people think of us as the best as well. And as a result, we know that we have to be a step ahead. In the world of AI, chances are by the time you do something, you're actually a step behind. But I still think we're ahead of everyone else. I will say Auburn University has been a unique partner for this effort, primarily because we are in a situation as a conference that allows us to have both an opportunity to work together with units across our conference, but to have something focused specifically on teaching and learning and AI was really unique. And we know that there are a lot of great things going on across our conference. But I will say during our provost meeting, which was my second day on the job, a little over a year ago, I was tasked with trying to identify resources for AI support. And after our provost here at Auburn connected us with Dr. Ali, it was pretty clear that we were heading in the right direction in terms of partnering with an institution that had both a focus on teaching and learning and the service aspect of that and supporting faculty in their efforts in the classroom, as well as being on the forefront of AI and data analytics. So it's a sweet spot. And I will say that Auburn has been a great partner in establishing that. So AI and the SEC. And let me give you a little bit of background. Let's see if I have a clicker here. And is the camera live in the
Yeah, I think I
as well?
need to adjust the view some moment so
I
that
became a little distracted because I was trying to kind of see where it was, but we'll keep moving.
I'm just gonna call Cheryl over real quick to adjust the view.
So this is an overview of SEC academic relations programming. Just to provide some context on where AI fits, this has allowed us to expand what we already do. So we host our competitions that are academic related competitions that are not athletic. So obviously everybody's very familiar with SEC tournaments and championships. But our academic competitions are very popular as well. Our pitch competition, focusing on student entrepreneurship as well as our MBA case team competition. And we're working? Okay,
Yes.
Good, excellent, thank you. And
It's working, you're good.
thank you.
Yay,
Cheryl. And our we provide a great deal of campus support through a number of other entities, and our People, Culture, and Community Initiative that focuses on opportunity forums, professional development for members of marginalized populations. Our faculty development programs have been around for a long time. I think our academic leadership development program was one of our first, and one of the first of its kind as well, from an athletic conference that really focuses on helping tenured faculty members transition into leadership on their campuses, as well as our emerging scholars program that's targeted at graduate students and postdocs and retaining that talent in the conference. And lastly, perhaps something that I'm responsible for kind of adding a layer to this, business and innovation. One of the pieces of my background focused on establishing public and private partnerships through economic and workforce development efforts, and in understanding where we are now as a conference and where we are now as an industry. It was really important to kind of tap into what was being done, expand that, but also find a way to connect technology with tangible resources for our faculty, staff, and students. And that I think it was happening organically, but actually fine tuning it was helpful. Our AI consortium, as I mentioned to you, I was tasked very early with re-energizing that consortium, and I'll give you a timeline of its start in just a second. But in doing so, we've established relationships and contacts with individuals on each of our campuses. And in addition to that, also looking at expanding our current competitions and efforts as it relates to entrepreneurship. And I think that there's a direct tie to the work that's being done from a technology perspective, particularly on the data analytics side, that could be very helpful to students, faculty, and staff in the entrepreneurship space as well. waiting for it to change it.
Oh, you may have to click back in the, there we go.
Yep. So one of the first things we did was a generative AI forum. This was what, maybe 6 weeks notice, very, very quick after convening our partners on all of our campuses, on all 14 campuses, soon to be 16. With the additions of Texas and Oklahoma, we recognized that generative AI was where a lot of people had questions, and that's your ChatGPT, your Google-related generative AI programs. That most major platforms have a generative AI, focus in some way, and so finding ways to establish a network of at least some baseline knowledge and connectivity for our faculty was a goal. I will say I asked one of our provosts, what would success look like for this? And the response I was given was, okay, at least if you have 25, 50 people sign up and attend. And within a couple of days, we had over 500 people and broke my Zoom account, literally. And we had over 1,000 views total. I believe it was 1,020 something people registered. That's almost unheard of for a virtual program in 2023 that is going to take 2.5 hours out of your life on a Friday morning. Those are things that you don't see very often. So clearly it meant that we'd hit a sweet spot with finding a need. And in trying to address it, what will we do next? So teaching with AI in the SEC, and I'll go back to this as well. I'm giving a brief overview here. But this partnership, obviously, with Auburn has been particularly impactful because it provides one of the only, in my opinion, tangible benefits to faculty and staff that go across discipline, across their standing and tenure track land. This really is one of those things that benefits everyone. And it's always great when you can see that there is a connectivity to our students, the teaching, research, and service efforts on our campuses, and the resources that we know faculty need to do those things. And I do believe that this is a tangible resources and has been incredible because with over 1,000 faculty members currently enrolled, you can't find many things that you get 1,000 people to do now, particularly across the span of 14 institutions, and actually 16 because we went ahead and included slots for Texas and Oklahoma in this effort to make sure that they were with us as we're kind of building this ship as we're sailing. But the tangible tools that I believe are provided through the program also have allowed a different connectivity with our campus. And that's very important because there aren't always a lot of opportunities to connect with other faculty across the spectrum who may have the same questions that you do. So giving them the opportunity to connect with each other was perhaps just as beneficial as the actual coursework, especially as we look to build something that is ever changing. Having the opportunity to connect across our campuses is anytime we can do that, we consider that a win. Now, overview of programming. We will host our sports and AI panel on July 18th, 2024 in Dallas, Texas. This will be the first time that an academic or business and innovation related effort happens during football media days. So SEC football media days will now feature a panel that addresses something that's very real to all of us, but that also has a different tie that we're used to seeing. So all those sports and AI will touch on what we're there for, mainly football. It also brings in a spotlight on the work that's being done on our campuses by way of expressing our commitment and underscoring our commitment to a research and service that's associated with AI and data analytics. So through this partnership, we hope that this will now, give a different understanding to people who may not already have it of what we're doing, but also provide a different understanding of what AI actually is in how it's used. One of the things that I think has made this partnership particularly helpful with all of our institutions is that if we find ways to address real life concerns, real life needs, and put into practice ways to address and answer questions and even ask questions and then find answers for those. And so this does that. We all know, we've seen sports and AI have, you can get the probability for when to go for it on fourth down, all of that good stuff, that's all there. But where does that fit long term? How does that actually impact the world? So we're hoping that the panel will address that. So we've started to kind of branch out from where we started, which was that generative AI forum, and then obviously into the course. And now we're moving into another space in hopes that all of these things work together in concert, just because the world is so fast paced. So AI and data science in the SEC, this little timeline that I've been briefly mentioning as I've presented on this. I think that probably the most important part of this is the progressiveness that we see with where we were as a conference in fall 2021 versus where everyone else was. Most people heard about ChatGPT spring 2023. Like that, I mean, we all know it existed before then, but there was something about January to March in 2023 that had people pressing all the panic buttons. But I do think it speaks to the quality of an SEC education and SEC research that our presidents, chancellors, and provosts understood the need to do this in fall 2021. I would hope that my hire, which was winter 2022, helped really facilitate additional discussions around it. But I do think it's worth noting that there was an understanding that something big was about to happen, and as usual, the SEC needed to be ready to dominate. So as we've done that, moving forward to the spring of 2023, as I mentioned to you all, the provost, even though this consortium had been in existence, there had been a lot of programming in support of the University of Florida, and they have a fantastic data analytics AI related program, and the research they're doing there is quite progressive as well as Vanderbilt and a number of other institutions. So this is not something that's unique to Auburn. It is something that is happening in varieties of ways across our conference, across our footprint. But I do think the big change happened when I spoke with Dr. Ali and said, how do we do this? How do we get everybody together? Because this exists, but I don't really know where does it exist? How do we pull people together? And I do think that having the mindset of a teaching and learning center allowed him to help me connect the dots a little bit more strategically and effectively to quickly ask the provost to designate at least one person on their campus. Most of them have designated at least two. Someone charged more in the teaching learning space, someone charged more with the research and actual data analytics and practice space to come together to participate in the consortium. That has made the conversations, I think, even more effective, and it's also helped us advance our efforts a lot quicker because we've got everybody in the room. And maybe not everybody we need, I guess, but figuratively, we've got both sides represented at both of our institutions, and that's probably the best part of this, that we've got both the teaching and learning and execution side, along with the more scientific analytics side. And that's a partnership you don't see very often. Even in research, you don't see that put into practice very often. So the team here at Auburn made it easy for us, I think, to really see how to bring people together. And then again, Florida, David Reed, who's an associate provost at the University of Florida, who chairs our AI consortium, also was quite progressive and very helpful and seeing that, okay, it can't just be from one institution. It can't just be one partner. And I think when you have leaders like that at the table, that's what makes this work. That's what makes this different, because in a world where we are meant to compete and competition is where we excel in the SEC, it is always nice when you see people ready to share resources, but also ready to encourage partnerships. And so I think how the ball was pitched helped a great deal as well. I wanted to touch a little bit on our overall economic impact. And the reason why I'm doing this is because this kind of supports where my mind is, where the AI Consortium is, and how not only the partnership here at Auburn, and not only the forums that we do virtually, and not only what will be our panel discussion in Dallas, the impact of the SEC is perhaps second to none. And so that's $92 billion into state and local economies. That's amazing. Now, again, that's not us that's not our little office of 48 people in Birmingham. That's the work that's happening on our campuses. And what that means to me is that we have a next step that is different than everyone else. You have a question?
Over how much time? What?
So this is an annual.
Annual, okay.
And so this is a situation where our annual impact report, which again, that's a presentation by itself, but I use this to say the work that's happening across our campuses is so expansive that anytime you can bring entities that are doing that type of work individually together, your impact together is just so much more. And each of our campuses have their own impact reports or something of the like, but together, it just means more. That's what we like to say at the SEC. This actually is what that means. It actually means more. You know, you can say that figuratively and as a feel-good statement, and that's all wonderful, and we love that too. But if you actually look at tangible dollars and cents, it translates to more. And something like a partnership around AI shows us that the work that's being done, collaboratively is different. You know, it's just, there's a different standard for it in the SEC. And that also means that we have to meet a different threshold as far as what it means to be a member of the SEC. So if these are your numbers, like, you can't come to the party with nothing. Like, you've got to continue to be on the forefront of what you're doing, because you can't have that type of job impact, financial impact of state and local economies, research and development impact, and that not translate to what you do every day. So the partnership with AI in the SEC means that we have to meet that standard daily. We have to meet this standard. It has to look like this. This has to complement the work we do on both ends. So I threw this in there for perspective, but also for it to, even though this came up somewhat organically, and it seemed as if it was put together, you know, very quickly, and I'll touch on that as well. A large part of that was because of this, because we can't stand idly by. And in the space that is AI, there's no time. If we had waited to do a generative AI forum, actually that was roughly 2 months after receiving that charge from the provost, we executed that program. If we had waited a year to do that, we would be a year behind. And chances are we were already 5 years behind, just because that's the world that is AI. It's such a fast pace that you can't afford to just wait for it to happen perfectly, but you have to be a part of an active process that continues to find active, effective ways to address the needs that we see. And I think that that's what we did with the course as well. There was a need then as faculty and staff were preparing for their school year. And if we look at the number of students that we serve, that means faculty, that's a lot of people that faculty are touching every day. So think about it from the standpoint of this course. by way of every campus having representatives complete this course directly impacts 577,000 students. And that's not just K-12, so like that's 577,000 students in a post-secondary setting. That impact is one that by itself, when the data comes back, I think from this first cohort, will be uniquely effective in us finding what we do next. Because there are not many things that then translate that far back down to that many people, just in anything. Outside of just the teaching space or outside of just a research space, they're actually getting something that translates to that many people is very different. Business and innovation. I touched on this earlier as well, but if we look at what are our next stops.
I like the
It's
like the look, yeah.
If I look at what's next, what can we do next? Again, in a perfect world, I would have the opportunity to do this like I did my dissertation. We would go through research, we would go through qualitative analysis, we would then go back and support that qualitative analysis with quantitative data. And we would then test things and come back with this perfect program. But chances are, if we do all of that related to technology and business and innovation, we are more than likely going to be very far behind everyone else. Because now, the SEC tends to set the pace in most things. And I will say, even though I've answered more questions about our AI and innovation efforts over the past 6 months than I would have anticipated. And I think some of that is because we were the first to do it. The energy behind it has been great in terms of engagement. Most educational entities are looking for ways to engage faculty and students in ways that they aren't already engaged, particularly after the pandemic. And so recognizing that we have to know, okay, we did that, people are trying to catch up with us. If they get to us, we've got to be further down the road. So that means what's next? And for me, I think that that's an expansion of what we do in the AI Consortium, and how that work connects with actual benefits long-term. So we're addressing how it works with the classroom now through the course. And then I know that there are other opportunities and ways to connect for our students as well. We do have an AI calendar, I should have mentioned that, on our conference academic page that lists events and other courses across the conference that people are open, that are open to people participating in. But looking at business and innovation and what that looks like and how that connects to our next steps, I do believe that means we're putting into practice how do we make this translate to people outside of an academic space. I am an academic. I recognize that a lot of us who are in the room are academics. Those who might be listening are academics, and that's lovely. But the great thing about working for the SEC is that we bring everyone together. So having a microphone as loud as ours and institutions that are as impactful as ours, it's helpful for us to now make it more of a resource for the broader public. So how does that translate? Does that mean that we now establish programming that addresses things that other people see outside of an academic space? Absolutely. Hence the AI and sports panel, because that's something that translates to everybody. So we will hopefully bring at least some knowledge, scientific knowledge around artificial intelligence and data analytics to the general public, solely based on the fact that our institutions have, really pushed us to identify connectivity as a benefit and ways to do that effectively. And so our business and innovation efforts will do that as well. I do think that where we are as a consortium means that we're continuing to find ways to address and find needs and to address them. But what we do next is largely dependent on the people in the room coming together saying, this is what we're seeing, and what, we can't solve every problem. And everything is not going to be perfect, but we do recognize that we have a unique platform And that it not only can help our member institutions, but it can also help our goal of making sure that our students are the most prepared. And, you know, we think about athletes when you think about the SEC, and that's true, but I do think that we have to underscore the fact that athletes in our space are students. And their student experiences are largely impacted by the work that we do in a day-to-day space. And how can we make those things of benefit to them, be it through the resources they have through their faculty, be it through the resources that we can help them establish as businesses, and through academic competitions like our case and pitch competition, that now also will have a technology tie as well.